Hello everyone! In the previous lecture, you learned how to make your web page layout using HTML. In this lecture, you will learn CSS to modify the appearance of the HTML elements and make a professional website. We will start by talking about what CSS is and different methods that can be used to add CSS code on a web page. We will continue by discussing how to group the web page elements so that they can follow a specific CSS style. Then different CSS properties will be explained, and at the end you will learn how to modify the web page layout using CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, that is used to describe the presentation of a HTML web page. CSS is designed to enable the separation of presentation and content, including layout, colors, and fonts. This separation can provide more flexibility and control in the specification of presentation characteristics. It can enable multiple web pages to share the same formatting and reduce complexity and repetition in the web page code. There are three ways to apply CSS code on your web page elements. These methods are inline CSS, internal CSS, and external CSS. Inline CSS allows you to style one unique HTML element. This style is added to a HTML tag with the use of style attribute. Internal CSS is used to define a style for a single HTML page. It is defined in the head section of a HTML page within a style element. And finally, external style sheet is used to define a style for many HTML pages. With the use of an external style sheet, you can change the look of an entire website by only changing one CSS file. In order to use an external style sheet, first a style sheet file should be created and saved as a CSS file. Then you should add a link to it in the head section of the HTML page. In order to use inline style, the style attribute should be typed inside the tag that you want to apply a style for. You should type style equal and open a double quotation. Then type the style name followed by a colon and its value, and finally add a semicolon. For example, if you want to change the background color of a p tag, you should type style equal double quotation background color colon and the name of the color and close it with a semicolon. Since internal CSS is used to add a style to all the elements with the same name, class, or ID in the current page, it should be added in the head tag instead of adding it for each tag separately. For example, the style that you can see in this slide makes the background color of all the p tags to red and font size to 25. External and internal CSS work in a similar way. I mean, they apply to all the elements with the same name, class, or ID. However, external CSS code is written in a separate file. Then it is linked to the desired pages. Using external CSS file is a better method in comparison with the internal CSS, as it can make a reusable CSS file that can be used for different HTML pages, not only one page. In order to create an external CSS file, you should add all your styles inside a text file and save it as CSS. Then use the link tag inside the head tag of the desired pages to link the CSS file. In this sample web page, we use the combination of inline CSS, internal CSS, and external CSS. As you can see, the external CSS file sets font of the p tags to comic font. The internal style sets the font color of the p tags to blue and font size to 25, and the inline style sets the background color of one of the p tags to yellow. When one or more styles conflict with each other, Style precedence rule determines which style is applied. For example, if an inline style changes the font color to red and an external style changes the font color to blue, style precedence determines which color should be applied. Inline CSS style will always override style properties determined in internal or external style sheets. Also, internal styles have priority to external styles, and external styles have priority to the default styles of the browser. When internal and external CSS is used, each block of CSS has a selector and a group of properties. Selectors are used to find the HTML elements you want to style, and each property defines one specific style. In the example that you can see in this slide, the p tag is the selector and text align and color are the properties. Therefore, all the p tags will be aligned center and their color will be red. CSS selectors can be divided into 6 categories, including element selectors, combinator selectors, pseudo-element selectors, pseudo-class selectors, ID, and class selectors. The element selectors apply the style on a specified tag. The combinator selectors are similar to the element selectors, however, they allow us to specify how the style is applied on a particular element based on its parents and siblings. The pseudo-element selectors apply the style on a part of a tag, for example, to the first line of the paragraph tags. The pseudo-class selectors apply the style on a certain state of a tag, for example, when mouse hover on a hyperlink tag. Please consider that in order to define pseudo-element, we should use double colon. However, for the other selectors, we only use one colon. Finally, class and ID selectors apply the style on the tags with a specific class or ID attribute. Now you know the usage of different types of selectors. But in order to use combinator, pseudo-elements, and pseudo-class selectors, you need to know the keywords that can be used to make different selectors. Let's start by the combinator selector keywords. There are 4 keywords including space, greater than, plus, and tilde to make different combinator selectors called descendant, child, adjacent sibling, and general sibling. The descendant selector matches all the elements that are descendants of a specific element. The child selector selects all the elements that are the children of a specific element. The difference between descendant and child selectors is that descendant selector selects any tag that is directly or indirectly inside the specified tag. However, child selector only selects the tags that their parent tag is the specified tag. The adjacent sibling selector selects all the elements that are the adjacent siblings of a specific element. Please remember that sibling elements must have the same parent element. And finally, the general sibling selector selects all the elements that are siblings of a specific element. In order to use pseudo-elements, there are 5 keywords that you need to learn in order to apply this style on a specific part of the tag. With the use of these keywords, you can apply this style on the first letter, first line, portion of an element, or after and before the content of the selected element. Similar to pseudo-element selectors, there are different pseudo-class keywords to apply the style based on a specific state of the tags. Since there are a great number of pseudo-class keywords, I'll just explain a couple of them for you, and you can read the complete list of all the pseudo-classes in this and the next slide. As some instances, first child selects and styles every element that is the first child of its parent tag. For example, if there are 5 p tags inside a div tag, this selector will only select the first p tag. Checked class is applied to every checkboxes that is ticked in a form, and hover class selects hyperlink text when mouse hovers on them. Let's have some instances from this table as well. Only ofType class selects every element that is the only element of its parent. For example, if there is a div tag that has 5 p tags, none of them will be selected. But if there is a div tag that has only one p tag, that p tag will be selected. Visited class selects all the visited links, and finally the required class selects input elements with a required attribute specified. Now I want to give you a couple of examples to have a better understanding of different types of selectors. Let's start by element selectors. As I said, element selectors apply their style on a specific element. In this example, the define style makes the background color of all the p tags red and font size to 25. However, since inline style has priority to the internal style and we use inline style for the first p tag, the background color of the first p tag is yellow instead of red based on its inline style. As it can be seen in this example, we can define a style using element selectors that applies on more than one type of element. I mean, instead of typing the same style for different tags, we can add the name of all of the tags and separate them by comma, then define the desired style for all of them at the same time. In this example, the defined style will be applied on all the p tags, h1 tags, and h2 tags. As you know, combinator selectors allow us to specify how the style is applied on a particular element based on its parents and siblings. In this example, you can see an instance of child combinator selector. The defined style modifies the background color of the p tags, but only if they are inside an article tag directly. As you can see, it didn't change the background color of the p tag, which is inside the section tag, and the p tags that are outside of the article tag. This example is an instance of descendant combinator selector. It's similar to the previous example. However, the background color of all the p tags that are directly or indirectly inside an article tag are changed to yellow. As you can see, the background color of the third p tag, which is inside the section tag, is changed as well, since the section tag is inside the article tag. In this slide, you can see another example of descendant combinator selector, but this time we use 3 levels of selectors instead of 2 levels. We used p tag, b tag, and em tag. Therefore, only the em tags will be styled that are inside the b tag, and that b tag is inside the p tag. As I mentioned in the previous slides, don't forget, if you separate the tags using comma, the style will be applied to all of the tags. But if you want to apply this style based on the hierarchical structure of the tags, same as this example, you should separate the tags using a space. As you know, pseudo-element selectors apply their style on a part of a tag. For example, the first style that we defined here makes the font color of the first character of all the p tags to red and their font size to 34. And the second style makes the background color of the first line of all the p tags to yellow. Just to refresh your memory, pseudoclass selectors apply their style on a certain state of a tag. In this example, we use 4 pseudoclass selectors for a tag to change the color of the hyperlink text based on different states. The a tag text color will be blue before users click on it, but it will be purple after clicking. When users hover mouse on the text, it goes green, and when mouse is clicked but not released, it goes orange. In this example, we use first child pseudoclass selector. The selector applies the style to every p tag that is the first child of its own parent tag. Therefore, the first and the third p tags go yellow, as the first p tag is the first child of the body tag and the third p tag is the first child of the div tag. As you know, class selectors apply the style on the tags with a specific class attribute. In this example, a general class called highlighted is defined to change the background color of all the tags with this class name to green. In this example, a class called sample class is defined, but for only the p tags. Therefore, all the p tags with this class name will be affected. But the other tags won't be affected even if they have sample class attribute. As you can see, although h1 and h2 tags have the sample class name, the sample class style hasn't been applied on them. This example is similar to the previous example. However, 3 tags will be affected instead of just 1 tag. The defined style will be applied on all the p tags, h1 tags, and h2 tags with sample class name. As you can remember from the previous 2 examples, in order to define the style class, we type the tag first, then we type the class name. However, if we type the class name followed by the tag name, the class name will be referred to the parent class name. As it can be seen in this example, only the background color of the p tags that the class name of their parent is sample class are yellow. Since the third and the fourth p tags don't have any parent with sample class, they don't have the yellow background. When you need to categorize the styles that you want to apply for a tag, you should define more than one class for that tag. In this case, you can apply only one or all the classes to the tag. In this example, 2 classes called center and large are defined. The center class is applied on the first p tag, and both classes are applied on the second p tag. As you know, ID selector is very similar to the class selector. However, it applies the style on the tags with a specific ID attribute instead of a class attribute. We normally allocate a unique ID to each tag, but many tags can have the same class. As you can see in this example, in order to define a style using ID selector, we should use number sign. Now you're familiar with all CSS selectors. So let's talk about different CSS properties that are used to define a style. Font family is the name of the font that we want to use for the textual contents. Font style is used to make the text italicized. Font weight is used to make the font bold. And font size property is used to change the font size. As you can see, for each property, we have different solutions to define their value. For example, for font size, we can use pixel, percentage, or small, medium, and large words. Font family property can get more than one value. The first value will be the default value, and the other values will be the alternative values. The alternative values are used when the browser can't support the default font. For example, if the browser can't support Times New Roman font, the second or the third fonts will be used. Other text properties are line height, text decoration, text transform, text align, text indent, and white space. Line height property is used to define the space between the text lines. Text decoration is used to add underline. Text transform makes all the letters lowercase or uppercase. Text align changes the alignment of the text to left, right, or center. Text indent is used to start a line with an indent. For example, if you type 15 pixels, the line will be started 15 pixels further from the margin than the main part of the text. And the white space property specifies how white spaces inside an element are handled. In this table, you can see bulleted and numerical list properties. List style type is used to select the bulleted shape and the numerical format of the list. List style position specifies the position of the list item markers. And the list style image replaces the list markers with an image. In this table, you can see the properties that are related to color and background color of the tags. The color property specifies the color of the text. There are different ways to specify the color. You can use the name of the color code, RGB code, or RGB percentage of the color. Background color is used to set the background color of an element. The background image property sets one or more background images for an element. The background repeat property sets how a background image is repeated both vertically and horizontally. The background attachment property sets whether a background image scrolls with the rest of the page or is fixed. And finally, the background position property is used to set the starting position of a background image. Now we want to talk about the properties that are related to tables. The border property specifies the border size and border color of the table. Also, border property can be used for the other tags such as p or div tags. If border property is specified for table, th, and td tags, each cell will have a separate border. But if you only add border for the table tag, there will be only a border around the table. The border collapse property is used to set whether table borders should collapse into a single border or be separated as in standard HTML. The border bottom property is similar to border, however, it just adds a border at the bottom of each row. The width and height property are used to specify the size of the table cells. The text align property is used to set left, right, or center alignment of the cell's value. As I explained before, text align can also be used for setting the text alignment of the other tags such as p and div tags. The vertical align property sets the vertical alignment of the table values. I mean top, bottom, or middle. The padding property specifies the space between the border and the content in a table. Border spacing is used to set the distance between the borders of adjacent cells. Increasing border spacing will increase the distance between the table cells. Background color and color are used to change the background color of the cells and table content. There are two useful pseudo-class selectors that can be used in conjunction with a background color property in order to change the background color of tables. nth-child selector is used to add a background color to all even or odd rows. And hover selector is used to highlight rows when mouse hover on them. And finally, the overflow property is used to display a horizontal scroll bar if the screen is too small to display the full content of the table. As the last group of the CSS properties, we want to talk about image properties. The most useful properties for the image tag are filter and border radius. Filter property is used to add different visual effects such as shadow, grayscale, and blur. Also, filter can be used to change the contrast, brightness, and opacity of the picture. The border radius property is used to change the shape of the picture. We can round the edges of the picture and convert the picture frame from square to circle. Now you're familiar with all the CSS selectors and the useful properties. As the last part of the lecture, we want to discuss how you can change the layout of the web page with the use of CSS. As you know, when we add different HTML tags, all of them are placed in one column below each other, which is called normal flow. But if you want to create a web page with two or more columns, you should use table or div tag and put the other tags inside these two tags. This is called nested flow. In this page, we have a normal flow as all the tags are arranged below each other in one column. The web page is started with h1 tag, then the first and the second p tags are added. In this example, you can see a normal flow again as both div tags are arranged in one column in order. However, in this example, the second div tag is inside the first div tag and has a nested flow. As you can see, the first div tag is closed after the second one. In this example, we created another nested flow, but this time by using table and putting h1 and p tags inside the td tags of the table to create a page with two columns. In order to create a two columns web page with the use of div tag, we should use display property and set it as inline block. The display property specifies the display behavior of an element. As you can see in the code, we defined two div tags and the other tags are added inside these two div tags. Then a class called column is used to set the display property of both div tags to inline block. In addition to arranging the layout of the web page with the use of the display property, there is another property called position that can be used to arrange the elements of the web page. This property can arrange the web page elements in different ways, including static, relative, absolute, fixed, and sticky. By using absolute positioning, you can fix the location of the elements on a screen by specifying its distance from left and top edges of the screen. But the main issue of this type of positioning is that the element with absolute positioning can overlap other elements. Relative positioning is similar to absolute positioning, however, it moves an element relative to its original position. In this example, the p tag has relative positioning with left property equals to 50 pixels. Therefore, it is placed 50 pixels from its original left position. In addition to the position property, there is another useful property called float that is used to position an element to the left or right and allow the other elements to be wrapped around it. For example, when you float an image to the left, the image will be shown on the left and the next element will be wrapped around it on the right. In this example, the image has float left property. Therefore, it is floated to the left in the text, and the text of the paragraph is wrapped around the image. The last CSS property that we want to discuss is ZIndex that specifies the stack order of an element. An element with greater stack order is always in front of an element with a lower stack order. In this example, the image tag position is absolute and its ZIndex value is -1, which means that the other elements have priority to this image. Therefore, all the other tags are shown on the image. In the next two slides, there are two practical examples of how HTML and CSS are used to create professional websites. Please watch them. That's it for this lecture. Now you're familiar with all the concepts related to HTML and CSS. I know that we had a lot of concepts in these two lectures, different HTML tags and different CSS properties. If you want to have an in-depth learning, you need to practice them and try to create different web pages with the use of the combination of elements. In the next lecture, which is the last lecture of the course, you will learn WordPress that can be used to create professional websites without writing any code.